Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
Wow, it's crazy to see Sean Hannity on the same page with me about the fact that if they have big news sites and they go do these profile interviews, they should put out large chunks of them at least, not talk to Sean Hannity in March. I was wrong, it wasn't last year, it was this year, a few months ago. Not talk to Sean Hannity in March, Ted Koppel for CBS, for 50 minutes, and then it's 70 seconds. Imagine 110 minutes was how long I sat down for the 5th interview or whatever it was with Megyn Kelly. And then they have a 19-minute piece, and I'm on there about 2 minutes, and I know it's edited together garbage because I have the tapes. People say, well, then release the tapes. We're going to. But I have a limited crew. And I'm going to make sure they're hard-hitting because we're going to show the clips from the show where she edited me together, and then we're going to say, here's where she edited me together. Now, here's from this point on the tape, unedited. Here's where she edited this together. It's from this point in the tape and this point in the tape. Bloop. We're going to show timelines. It's a lot of work. It's like a documentary. I'm not going to just throw the tapes out. I've decided I am going to show you how they engage in this manipulation. Remember Katie Couric got sued because she had a, quote, focus group, a panel of gun owners. And she was asking them questions like, give me one example where guns do something good. And, of course, they all gave great answers because they were sitting there taping it. They could prove that. But on the show, they'd cut to the woman going, like she was watching paint dry or daydreaming. They cut to the guy. He's, and what they do is they aim cameras at you and say, we're just getting some room sound. Just sit there like you're doing nothing. Then they run the camera for a few minutes on each person. Now they got cutaway shots to make you look like buffoons. Gun rights groups suing Katie Couric, others involved with Under the Gun documentary. Katie Couric responds, Under the Gun controversy. Now, you notice Hannity's taking the high road with a little lady, Megyn. I know they're friends. She was saying nice things about him when she was here. And I'm sure it's true that she went to the interview and then they edited it. But definitely the kind of stuff that this gun rights group sued over has already happened here. Deception, manipulation, misrepresentation. I mean, I've got her for 25, 30 minutes going, oh, I'm obsessed with you. Oh, it's not a hit piece. Oh, I think you're a good guy. Oh, I promise it's not a gotcha piece. I promise it's not a hit piece. And then it's the worst hit piece the earth has ever seen. With me all with hot lamps all around me and, you know, lit from below and just incoherent garbage. And I'm done talking about that for now. Later, I'm going to air the whole segment from Hannity because I think it's something everybody should really be debating and discussing here, and that we should start demanding from the networks. Hey, you've got unlimited bandwidth, unlimited space. You'll get a lot of views. People want raw interviews. It's what they're after. Why would you not put out your edited 19-minute piece, and then after, so it doesn't compete with it, put out at least large chunks that's unedited? But they can't put out 2-minute chunks, 5-minute chunks, 10-minute chunks, because it would be coherent. Instead, you watch that piece, it sounds like I'm a gibbering idiot. And I talked to Nico and others that were there. I was tired. I've been interviewed off and on for 12 hours. And so there were a few times that I gibbered or stammered, but that was only a few times. It was taken out of context. And quite frankly, I'm so sick of Megyn Kelly and so sick of the globalists, I didn't even have butterflies during it. I was just so sick of the same stupid, twisted questions and got you answers and just all the games they were playing. But again, regardless of how bad I did, and I'll say I didn't do too good. People are saying I'm a genius. No, I didn't do too good. It doesn't matter. People hate MSM so bad, and they're so sick of it, I've been raised up on people's shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next 30 minutes, my good buddy, and of course, Infowars.com contributor, Joe Biggs, former Army Sergeant, Patriot, is going to give us his take on leftist stabbings all over the United States and Europe. We have more stabbings, more truck attacks in England and in France today by the loving jihadis. And a friend of Joe Biggs got stabbed last night They screamed, "White boy gonna get shanked," because he had, well, there's a photo here of him in a Hillary for Prison shirt, and he had conservative stickers and Trump stickers on his car. We're going to be talking about that here in just a moment. And that ties in to Colonel Schaefer warns of bloody civil war, societal collapse. That was last night. A month ago, he warned that the deep state is trying to overthrow Trump and trying to cause this civil war. And then that ties in to this entire stack of news that I've got right here. Tucker takes on Democratic strategist who tweeted, "Hunt Republican congressman, hashtag after the Scalise shooting." This is a high-level Democrat saying, let's go after more people. The Huffington Post writers made jokes about the man that died in North Korea, Otto Warmbier. They said, hey, he's white. He's privileged. I'm going to play that coming up in the hour. He's a frat boy. Because, see, there's this weird alliance with any authoritarian regime, no matter how hellish it is, with these trendies. Continuing, Bernie Sanders urges supporters to act in unprecedented way to stop Republicans by any means necessary. And, of course, you've seen his supporters out shooting and trying to kill people. UN report, number of global refugees, that means Muslim men, hits record high. More than 10 million people in 2016 traveling to the West. Knifeman drives at children at Kent, former military base. Armed police on the scene stop him as he screams Allah Akbar and tries to stab people. Report, terrorist rams into police car in botched attack in Paris. Same thing. First driver death in Calais after migrants drag tree trunks onto the motorway. They routinely rob the trucks on their way to the English Channel Tunnel and pull the drivers out and rob them. There's thousands of videos of that on YouTube, but this guy got killed. They're saying it's the first death. Infidels should have their throats cut. Italy arrests Iraqi refugees over ISIS support. Terror flags wave openly in the streets of London. That's CNS News. Murder of Muslim girl blamed on Trump was committed by an illegal immigrant. Think about how controlled the media is. A Paul Joseph Watson article on Infowars.com. An illegal alien kills a Muslim girl, and then they say, look, it's a terror attack on Muslims because of Trump's hate. But really, it's just another illegal alien killing somebody. Murder of Muslim girl blamed on Trump was committed by an illegal immigrant. President held responsible for death his border policy may have prevented. The murder of an American Muslim teen in Virginia that leftists blamed on Donald Trump was actually committed by an illegal immigrant. As soon as the fact of the story became known, leftists suddenly lost all interest in the case. I wonder why. 17-year-old Nabra Hassim was killed during an incident on Sunday when Darwin Martinez Torres drove up a curve towards a group of about 15 teens who were walking in Fairfax County after participating in an event at All Dulles Area Muslim Society. Torres became enraged after arguing with one of the teens on a bike before leaving his vehicle and chasing the group with a baseball bat. The suspect caught her and hit her with a bat before taking her body into an unknown location in Loudoun County. And then it goes on from there. And our only issue is there are a lot of mentally ill people, a lot of criminals that come in out of Latin America already fleeing justice, just like folks used to run to Latin America from justice here, and then they're above the law and can commit crimes over and over again, and the courts basically see them as above the law. Why is that the case? I'm not trying to just single out Muslims or anybody here, but the fact is the media continues to try to cover things up and spin things and is openly trying to push us into a civil war. Here's a clip, again, that I played last hour of Colonel Schaefer warning about this on Fox News.
This is the issue. If the governments who are responsible for our common welfare, common good, and defense are shown to be ineffective, people on the opposite side are going to rise up. So what you see here is the automatic response, force on force, of certain folks coming back to essentially create And the pathology is clear. If one side begins to act violently, you have inevitably the other side starting to come back. It always happens. So we have to understand if the government does not stop the violence on the left, you'll see more violence on the right and retaliation. It's inevitable.
Colonel, you fight in war zones. People are getting way too crazy about politics. These are a difference in philosophy.
It's the leftists doing it.
We shouldn't be shooting at each other and trying to stab each other, rushing in stages. It's out of control. Hopefully rational people will dial it back.
Hopefully.
I didn't think I'd have to tap into your terrorism knowledge for these segments, but sadly we do.
The president, for better or for worse, is the ultimate classification or declassification authority. He can talk to anybody about anything, no matter what the level is. And beyond that, I understand that things were instantly twisted by the National Security Council staff and leaked, obviously, to the Post. And there was a very delayed, very muted response where they should have been right up there outlining the facts right up front about how this is completely false. So I think they, like you point out, the White House communication staff has to believe they are now at a state of war. This is war. It's called information operations, information warfare, and clearly the other side, the deep state and the Clinton folks, and I have to say some folks on the Republican side are all lining up. The battle lines are drawn, and it's time for people to understand how to deal with this as if like it's a war.
The deep state is committed to maintaining this assault. It seems. I mean, we're not even 4 months into the Trump presidency, and the assaults continue, the attacks continue, and we have, as you indicated at the outset, the New York Times and the Washington Post, these are no longer fake news. I mean, they are, it's an entire psyops. It is a disinformation campaign from previous, former journalists. What do you think, having some experience with all of the above, would be an appropriate response by this White House?
Well, two things. First, you're completely correct on the papers. I mean, this is they become Pravda, just to use a Cold War metaphor, and it's shameful. Secondly, regarding the very fact, and look, I've met with senior intelligence officials now in place, and Lou, they have to go through and sort out who is going to be actual career people who are going to do their job and those who are loyal to the previous administration. And some of these folks have transitioned from what we call political appointee jobs into career jobs. So you got to go through. My recommendation, I'll tell you what I said, you need to go fire two levels down. Everybody below you 2 levels, fire them. Be done with it. Thank you for your service to America. It's time for you to find a new job. And then start looking for people who are going to be loyal to the American people and to the policies of this president.
That's where we are. And the left isn't the left. It's a bunch of foreign bank-funded crazies backing Bezos and everybody that are destroying the economy, battling Trump, trying to cut taxes for the average person. It makes me so mad to see ignorant mobs of people believing the propaganda, running around stabbing, shooting, and murdering. And it's not conservatives doing it. It's 99% of the time liberals. And then you heard Fox News earlier going, it's wrong for both sides to do this, shooting people and stabbing people and rushing on stages. So we rush on stages and say, stop having murder the president rituals in public. Okay? This isn't First Amendment. You're promoting it with taxpayer money. That's the same as shooting a congressman and cops. Joe Biggs joins us to break this down. One of his friends got stabbed last night out in California. We can show folks the article on Infowars.com. Here, him with the gentleman that got stabbed. This is a real travesty. Antonio Foreman. Tell us about what happened, Joe.
Yeah, he was at a free speech rally yesterday with Kyle Chapman, a.k.a. Bass Stick Man. He's also Baked Alaska, Tim Treadstone's bodyguard. He goes to all these events across the country, to free speech events, to different events where Antifa and the left are trying to take down monuments of American history. So he's been to a lot of these events before. He's a well-profiled person.
Looks like he was targeted, is what you're saying?
I believe so. I mean, I believe it was an Antifa attack or some sense. The fact that
they probably said they were Armenians. They're probably Muslims, probably trying to scapegoat Armenians.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that they said that the car ran through a barrier and then ran into his car. Then they got out all nonchalantly and said, hey, let's exchange information. And then all of a sudden they flipped out. I mean, who runs into a car through a barrier on accident and then all of a sudden it turns into a stabbing? I mean, the cops are saying it wasn't premeditated.
Totally premeditated. They were gutting themselves up to do it. They were making sure there weren't any guns out. They were a bunch of cowards.
And it's interesting what you were talking about earlier with that Muslim girl that was killed. There was a lady named Amy Siskind. She's a verified account on Twitter. I don't know what she does, but she goes, "Oh my God, this is what happens in Trump's America." I go, "That's BS." I said, "You have an agenda and you're ignoring the facts that she was killed by an illegal alien. If POTUS was allowed to do what he wanted to do with a travel ban and build a wall, this wouldn't have happened." I said, "You're using this to spin your own agenda to blame it on the white man, to blame it on the conservative, when in fact it was a minority who killed another minority. Has nothing to do with Trump, has nothing to do with conservatism. It just has to do with a bad person that got through the border when he shouldn't have been here in the first place." And now you have the Daily Caller. They've come out with a list of attacks on conservatives. Just in January, a Trump supporter was knocked unconscious after airport protesters repeatedly beat him on the head. A Trump supporter was attacked another time after putting out a fire that was started by an anti-Trump protester. And I mean, he goes on and on and on.
Well, you know what needs to happen? People need to start packing. And when somebody pulls a knife out or something tries to kill them or attack them, people need to defend themselves and put these animals down. The left will say that's me calling for terror. No, if somebody tries to kill you, defend yourself. That's America. We're not North Korea where you liberals go on vacation and just dream of how you could be in a death camp, torturing us to death and raping our families. We're going to fight you dirtbags. We'll be right back. I want to be clear. I am not for offensive attacks on the left, on communists, on jihadis, on anybody. But if somebody walks up and says, "Get ready to be stabbed, white boy, get ready to be shanked," and pulls a knife out, you better have a concealed carry, you better draw, and you better defend yourself. Now, that's what they teach you, concealed carry class, you name it, but go get your own training, go get firearms training. Don't be looking for trouble. I'm not looking for trouble. I don't want the trouble of having to put somebody down. But, you know, I've had leftists walk over to me in downtown Austin and say, "You and Trump can go to hell," and show me their gun. And I'm just like, are you kidding? And that time I was with 4 people who were all armed with concealed carries, and we were all going to the shooting range. We walked out of a restaurant. He followed us out, and we all turned like in a gunfighter movie. And we're just standing there. And I was with trained military people, and the guy kind of got sense and walked off. But that's where this country's gone, ladies and gentlemen. These people are whacked out. So the question is, do we run like they tell them to do in England? If a Muslim's running over with a car or shooting you or stabbing you, do you say, "I'm sorry, I'm a European," or "I'm white," or "I'm Christian," and just help them slit your throat? Or do you like line your kids up in the street for them to run them over? Or do you just bow down and worship? Or if a leftist wants to stab you, you say, "I'm sorry, here's the heart." I mean, because that's how crazy all of this has gotten. So we're not even being sarcastic now. We've reached this point with a bunch of hyper-violent scum that wants civil war funded by a bizarro Nazi collaborator. And we've got, here's the clip, Bernie Sanders, "Do whatever is necessary, go to the next level, do whatever you need to. White people don't know what it's like to be poor, and even though my supporter just shot cops and other people and almost killed a congressman, do whatever you want." And CNN's got guest on with Will Blitzer. "He wasn't evil, he was a good man." And Blitzer's like, "Yes, yes, yes." Well, what happens at some point? Here is Bernie Sanders.
Our job from coast to coast is to bring millions of people together. When I talk about a political revolution, this is what I'm talking about. Is for people all over this country
to make it
pressure on every level of government. To make it Venezuela. To say that in America, you know, we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We are not going to do horrendous things to millions and millions of working people. We got to stand up and fight back. We have got to be involved in the political process in a way that we have never been before. Because what is happening now in Washington is unprecedented. This is the worst piece of legislation, the House bill, that I can recall in 25, 26 years.
Yeah, he likes stuff like they had in Venezuela, North Korea, and Cuba. Joe Biggs, where is all this going? I mean, how bad can this get?
Well, here's the thing Americans have to realize, that most Americans are complacent. Most of our citizens have never been in combat situations. Most of them have never had to live day to day with the fear of possibly being shot, attacked, blown up, or anything like that. So Americans have a different mindset, and they need to break that mindset, and they need to think offensively. It doesn't mean act or react offensively all the time, but it means to have that thought in the back of your head. if something does go wrong today, am I ready to deal with this? And when you're in combat, you constantly have to think about what could possibly happen, and you have to run through different types of scenarios in your head as to how I am going to react to defend myself, and always look for different ways out. So, for instance, in a parking garage, where are my exits? Where are my entrances? You know, was it well lit? Am I parked in a well lit area? Am I parked in a dark area? Am I being followed? You know, things like that you need to think about. Do I have a knife on me? Where is it? If I'm left-handed and I have a knife in my left pocket, I'm carrying groceries with my left hand, I've automatically taken seconds away from my action or my reaction time to be able to draw that to protect myself. So people need to break away from that complacency that they have, that it's not going to happen to you. Just like Europe has to get used to the fact that almost every day there could be an attack where ISIS could blow them up, stab them, attack them. And we have a similar threat here with Antifa and with the left, because they somewhat are aligning with ISIS-like tactics.
And now they've programmed some minorities to just attack whites because they're white, not even wearing Trump shirts, not even doing anything. In fact, some people wearing red hats are now being attacked. It's being reported. We have to, again, understand, ladies and gentlemen, that if we give into this intimidation, the globalists are going to win. We've got to be more political now, be more out in the open now, and quite frankly, everybody needs to concealed carry to defend ourselves, to begin to send a message that when they attack, just like somebody robbing a liquor store or breaking in your house, when they attack, unfortunately, they're going to have to pay for their ignorance.
Well, what people have to think about, too, is it really worth me going out to that bar and having those drinks in an area that I know that I'm hugely outnumbered politically in my sense? You know, if you go out and drink beers or you drink alcohol and you go back and pull a gun, you're screwed. So there's a lot of things you have to think about.
Exactly. The globalists want the left to segregate from libertarians, the right, Christians. Unfortunately, they live off our money anyways. It's time to ostracize them. It's time to shun them. Loomer1 is an amazing libertarian patriot activist. I've been familiar with her work for a while, and we finally got her on the show. She was on Hannity last night. And, of course, speaking of Hannity last night, we're also going to debate the fact that Hannity said, listen, release the Alex Jones tapes. That's what NBC should be doing. In March, Ted Koppel interviewed him for 50 minutes and aired 70 seconds of what he had to say, edited so bad it was unintelligible. Now, at least he didn't put a light underneath his chin like they did me. I mean, this is incredible. And then they said Joe Biggs was a liar and that we didn't catch drugs coming across the border, even though local news said it was clearly drugs. And the FBI asked to meet with Joe. I can talk about this now, and commended him, and he got intel from the FBI about an ISIS base that they weren't even allowed to go to. And Joe went there, then the FBI met him again, and then a year later, Judicial Watch got the documents and confirmed it was all true. Of course it was true. The FBI contacted us because Joe, they thought, was crazy enough, they said brave enough to go in there. As a journalist, they wanted video of it. So they were followed the whole... We're going to talk about that in a moment. But that just shows how this lady that reads off a teleprompter is pointing her finger at Joe Biggs, a veteran of all combat wars, patriot, great job at InfoWars, contributes to InfoWars, and then he's a liar. Everything on her piece is a lie. So I'm sick of her piece. Worst ratings in the history of Dateline NBC. But that's the story. People have rejected it. Loomer joins us, and of course, you can find out more about her on several websites. I'm going to ask her the best place for people to go, because she's involved with a lot of different sites. TheRebel.media, and of course, she's worked with a lot of other great organizations as well. She ran up on the stage at Shakespeare in the Park, where they're openly got the Trump character with the American flags, with the Eastern European Melania wife. They're admitting it's a simulated murder of Trump. They're promoting his murder everywhere. Then the media tried to say, oh, it's not really Trump. She's just crazy. It's a 500-year-old play from the most famous playwright ever, William Shakespeare. This is the deception and the games they play. You can follow her at freelaura.com. And again, she joins us right now with Joe Biggs to break this down. And then, of course, we have the host of Fox and Friends saying that you were wrong. And I want to start a fight with Fox News, that you were wrong. Kilmeade and others are saying that you were wrong to rush the stage. He says, we don't want shootings and stabbings and rushing the stage. Shootings and stabbings isn't rushing the stage. We're being peaceful, saying don't promote violence, standing up with free speech. They're the ones that take over events and don't let people speak. You just took over for 2 minutes and pointed out that they were simulating the murder of the president. There's this big national debate with conservatives over whether this is right or not and whether we should adopt the tactics of the left. Those aren't tactics of the left. Those are tactics of survival and taking action. And the globalists should know the libertarian right-wing patriot movement is about to get a lot more aggressive because we're trying to head off a civil war. Laura Loomer, what do you say?
Well, those are constitutional rights as well, Alex, right? So we have a right to free speech, a right to protest. And as long as it's peaceful and not violent like the left, you know, I have a right to get up on that stage and protest against the assassination of our president and incitement of violence against the right.
That's right. I mean, they're openly simulating murder, saying kill everybody. It's happening. They're calling for civil war. Top Democrats are calling for civil war. In fact, are we doing enough to aggressively, with information, get in these bullies' faces?
No, we're definitely not. And, you know, I face a lot of criticism from people in the conservative movement for using what they're calling a leftist tactic. But if you look at Saul Alinsky, for example, you know, promoter of leftist tactics, that's what we need to do. We need to adopt Alinsky tactics. And like he said, Alinsky rule number 4, use the opposition's playbook against them. If we're going to win this war, which is a culture war, we need to start you know, giving them a taste of their own medicine and showing the hypocrisy of their tactics by using their tactics against them. Because what was I doing? I got up on that stage and I protested their event. How many times have we seen lefty protesters interrupt and shut down conservative events? But then when I do it, it's not okay?
What happened with the Trump event in Chicago? They shut down the entire thing. And the fact that they're even going to compare these 3 things, shooting, stabbings, and rushing a stage, in the same thing, that's just beyond me right there. I mean, there's nothing about rushing a stage that has anything to do with actual violence. She was protesting the actual, like she said last night, you know, this violent porn, this assassination porn that we're seeing, the fact that people are promoting it as okay. Then we see Kathy Griffin hold a bloodied, beheaded version of Donald Trump, and his son sees that. It's completely traumatized by that. It's making it okay for that. It is empowering people like this guy who went to the baseball game and purposely picked out Republicans to shoot. This guy had a kill list. There's so much fear-mongering coming from the left that people are buying into it so much that they are willing to go out, stab, and shoot at people.
Right, and one thing that I mentioned, too, was that people were being encouraged by Kathy Griffin and also this play, Julius Caesar, in which the president gets stabbed on stage. And just one day after I warned against liberals stabbing conservatives and stabbing our president, a conservative pro-Trump supporter, Tony Foreman, was stabbed, and now he's in the hospital because liberals stabbed him, right? And Antifa recently just published a new poster that said, "We've beat them before, we'll beat them again." And it shows, you know, a knife being jabbed inside somebody wearing a Pepe logo and a swastika on their hat. So they're calling us Nazis. They're using imagery from Julius Caesar, the knives, you know, leftists armed with knives. If you saw the picture of me on stage, I interrupted it during the assassination scene because I wanted to stop the scene.
And let's be clear, the minorities are not the people pushing this, and I'm not just saying that to virtue signal. It's true. It's mainly white liberals, big money, George Soros's, the Clinton Foundation, openly funding all these TV shows and movies where Trump's racist and I'm racist, and then Tom Brokaw says I'm racist, and then Hillary Clinton says I'm racist with no proof. They don't ever show it, and then they have Tom Brokaw back on the news Sunday night saying it. It's crazy. And now all over Austin, they've got images of women with machine guns shooting conservatives that the Communist Red Brigade have put out, you know, saying, you know, stand up, you know, shoot back and all this other stuff, as if we're out there shooting and killing them and as if we are the Nazis. This is just totally insane, but they're whipping themselves up into this frenzy wanting violence. Laura Loomer, where do you see this going?
I think it's only going to get worse unless, you know, our politicians and members of the liberal mainstream media start to condemn political violence. So Julius Caesar was funded by the New York Times and CNN. And if you have, like, how many members of the public watch CNN and read the New York Times, right? If so many people in our country are influenced by this liberal ideology and, you know, these liberal media outlets are paying to incite violence, it's not going to change unless they publicly condemn the alignment with ISIS, the alignment with Islam, this continuation of political violence. And so it's really up to us, conservatives, to lead the fight. I see it getting worse, though.
Well, it's interesting because people are saying that these plays, these images that Kathy Griffin put out aren't really empowering people to go out and do stuff. And that's complete and total BS. When Tony was stabbed yesterday 9 times, Baked Alaska tweeted out at first, and then he called me up and we talked about what was going on. I was looking at the responses. People were like, oh, they should have stabbed him more so he would have died. This cracker deserves to be killed. And these are the responses you're seeing from the left day in and day out without zero remorse for human life, for anything at all. They don't care. They want us to die. There is a war going on, and people have to understand to get out of that complacency mindset, to change how you think and understand that our world is changing around us. We have to be ready. It doesn't mean to act first, but if the time does come to react, to be ready and to do it right.
Well, that's right. I mean, take Brian Kilmeade. I'm not trying to bash him, but he's there last night, and he's interviewing Colonel Schaefer, and I guess this morning, and he then again says, well, they're shooting, they're stabbing, they're rushing on stages. Everyone needs to stop. No, the left is shooting and stabbing and running people over with cars. But at a certain point, conservatives are going to start responding back, which I don't want. A bunch of dead, mindless liberals that we were unable to deprogram. I want to break their conditioning. They're not real liberals. I don't see myself as a conservative. I see myself as a classical liberal, Thomas Jefferson style. More taxes, more freedom, more mobility, more of everything, more choice. That means real diversity. That means real tolerance, not all the left's authoritarianism. So the left is truly an authoritarian group of scum.
Well, that's their goal, though. Their goal is to push a conservative to a breaking point where he reacts instead of thinking first, and does something so they can go see. I mean, look at the attacks that have happened in Europe over the last few days. You got one guy who drives a van into a crowd of people, kills one person, I believe it was, at the end of the day. And it's like, oh, my God, terrorism in London, terrorism. And it's like everyone's up.
And they say, this is the right-wingers. It's your fault. You all need to be banned. It's all the Christians' fault. And then meanwhile, but whenever a Muslim blows up 22 girls and kills them, oh, it's not a Muslim. We all need to be peaceful and just give in and go along with it. Let me ask Laura Loomer this question. Why, because you're a woman, and you're there in New York City, why do you think the left and feminists particularly are so in love with radical Islam? Is this a form of cuckolding? Is this a form of masochism? Is this a form of Stockholm Syndrome?
I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not a feminist, and I've been very outspoken against the alignments of the feminist movement with Islam. I think that anyone who calls themselves a feminist really has a suicide wish. I think they have a suicide gene. I think that the left, they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. It's a case of mental illness, this extreme sense of liberalism. It really is borderline mental illness. And that's
it's a jihad. I mean, it's a death wish. It's a war wish. They want a rite of passage. I mean, they dream about a red terror overthrow and how they're going to murder everybody. There's suddenly red brigades just marching all over Austin, attacking people, attacking pet sanctuaries, cat sanctuaries, saying, get out of here, gentrified scum, get out of here, white people. And it's almost all white college students running around.
And just like you said, Stockholm Syndrome, it's a mental illness. These people have been brainwashed by the media, and I can't explain it any other way than just a mental illness, really.
I mean, I've been saying this for a long time, that liberals have a suicide gene, and there's a reason behind it, because they're so obsessed with this social justice warrior mentality that they want to go help minorities, and they feel empowered by it. They feel so good by it. Well, the thing is radical Islamists aren't stupid. And they see that their only way into this country is to use these people as pawns. So they play victims and they go, oh, yeah, fight for us, fight for us. But what the left fails to realize, 9 times out of 10, they'll be the first ones to fall victim to those guys once they actually get into the country, establish their footprint.
That's right.
And are able to start voting and making real changes. If you look at the amount of, whites in the world, they're not, having babies. But if you look at the amount of Muslims in the world, they're having way more babies right now than anybody else. There's a good chance that we're going to be the minority at some point in time. They want to come into the country, they want to overpopulate, and they want to have their ability to outvote us. And the next thing you know, you got Sharia law, and the liberals are going to be the first ones that go down.
I want to ask both of you where you think this is going. At the end of the day, I don't think it's the Islamicists that I'm even worried about in the final summation. It's that the globalists are bringing them in, have this master plan, are so anti-Christian, are so anti-West, and just foaming at the mouth. And the universities are literally falling apart. They're giving people nearly worthless degrees. I see civilization going into the mud, all because a bunch of billionaires wanted to make the public more manageable, so they dumbed us down and divided and conquered us. But since I mentioned Kilmeade, here he is trying to equate conservatives' incredible restraint, Americans' incredible restraint, saint-like stoic restraint, with us being involved in the reign of liberal violence and terror sweeping the globe. Here it is.
This is the issue. If the governments who are responsible for our common welfare, common good, and defense are shown to be ineffective, people on the opposite side are going to rise up. So what you see here is the automatic response, force on force, of certain folks coming back to essentially create, to retaliate. So again, the pathology is clear. If one side begins to act violently, you have inevitably the other side starting to come back. It always happens. So we have to understand, if the government does not stop the violence on the left, you'll see more violence on the right and retaliation. It's inevitable.
Colonel, you fight in war zones. People are getting way too crazy about politics. These are a difference in philosophy. Right. We shouldn't be shooting at each other and trying to stab each other, rushing in stages. It's out of control. Hopefully rational people will dial it back.
Hopefully.
I didn't think I'd have to tap into your terrorism knowledge for these segments, but sadly we do.
So, Colonel Schaefer's warning we're going into a civil war. The deep state wants to overthrow Trump. This isn't a game. I look at the fools that hate the economy being turned back on. They're racing to kill the economy. A lot of smart economists think that Trump tried to save it. They thought he could have saved it. Right now, they're saying signs are they are blocking him cutting taxes. If that doesn't happen, they think everything else is going to fail. Too little, too late. Ron Paul and many others say that. What's going to happen if the recovery fails? We plunge into a serious depression, and the left's trying to impeach or kill the president. I don't see how a civil war doesn't break out, and then it just comes down to our states and our police and our citizens to come together and not give in to this intimidation and this terror. What do you see happening?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of police. I'm really good friends with, especially after the RNC trip, the whole Cleveland Police Department. I mean, these guys are sending me baby gifts and stuff. I mean, the police that I talk to around the country, even in Austin and stuff like that, most of them are aligned with us in how we think the conservative ideas, more states' rights, more power to the people, not being revenue generators. You know, I go to gun shows all over the country, and I talk to retired sheriffs that hate their jobs, just giving out tickets to do that. So you actually have real police. You have real people out there within the government that want to do the right thing. So if it does go into a civil war and we spiral out of control, I think we're going to have a lot of good people on our side, a lot more than what a lot of people are thinking right now. And we have a lot of good people out there that know how to use their guns, that know how to actually go out and get food, who actually know how to live off the land, and who just don't sit around in their mom's basement eating Cheetos all day playing video games. You know, the worst thing that could happen for the left is for something like that to happen, because the people on the right are the ones that are outdoorsmen. We're the ones that go fishing and hunting and live off the land. For them, it would be the worst thing in the world, but for some reason they want it, and it goes back to that whole thing that the left has a suicide gene. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. And one thing that you just said, Alex, you said if the left is trying to kill our president and assassinate him. They already are. It's not a question of if. They already are actively plotting to assassinate and,
exactly.
So there have been over 12,000, threats to assassinate President Trump on Twitter since he's been elected president. I don't think I've ever seen that many active threats against a president's life ever.
Well, what about newspaper editors? Every major newspaper I've seen has had writers saying, kill him, I'll buy the bullets. I mean, how are they going to feel?
You have James Devine, I think his name is. He said, #hunt Republican congressman. He tweeted this. He's a Democratic strategist, a paid Democratic.
He went on Tucker Carlson last night and defended it.
Yeah. Yep. So he's hunting. I mean, Joe just talked about hunting, like Republicans being outdoorsmen, and now the left is using their. they want to hunt.
Well, let's come back and talk about that, because you saw the day the congressman got shot last week. Well, Blitzer had a guest on saying this guy's not evil. He's just tired of stuff. You know, he took political action, and Blitzer was like nodding his head. What happens then if people that we're trying to stop start going out and just saying, hey, it's just political, I'm going to blow your head off?
It's
Democracy Partners attacks Veritas, launches $1 million federal lawsuit. And so that's where all of this is going, and he joins us. Remember the clips. Talk about game changer in the election. It's not true that I or you defeated Hillary. She's blamed 20 different groups. Veritas, Drudge, InfoWars, the Russians, misogyny, racism. Never the fact that people are sick of her and her policies. So, James O'Keefe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, Alex. I think reality defeated Hillary Clinton. You know, the truth defeated Hillary Clinton. And now, just yesterday, it was announced a lawsuit, $1 million lawsuit against my team, Veritas, from this guy, Bob Kramer, who's one of Barack Obama's close friends. We're basically retaliating. You know, we exposed the fraud during the election. We exposed the four-part series, sending shockwaves to the DNC about voter fraud, use of dark money from an overseas donor to arrange these types of things. So they sued me for $1 million, and they want to shut us down. And then I get calls from Politico. I get calls from all these mainstream outlets that suddenly want to talk to me now that I'm being sued. And I want to know who's funding this lawsuit. I've said that over my dead body will I ever shut up. But Bob Kramer, Barack Obama's friend and the person Hillary Clinton had to fire, is now suing me for $1 million for the videos that we did during the election.
To me, this is about just silencing you, but more importantly, intimidating other people that, oh, look, we'll sue you if you do more stuff like James O'Keefe did.
Yeah, I mean, I think investigative journalism itself is on the line. I mean, a lot of media companies don't have the brass balls it takes to go out and speak truth to power. I said on your show before that a lot of these journalists, a lot of these media organizations can't do the job because they're worried about the government regulators coming after them. Let's say if Hillary was elected, and we went out on a limb and did it, and they're trying to deter us and establishment news organizations from speaking truth to power against the establishment, because this is what happens to you when you do so. You get sued for $1 million. This is a press stunt Kramer is pulling. $1 million. What does that even mean, $1 million? And by the way, Alex, we live in a media environment where people can use anonymous sources. Every single claim that we make is buttressed by videotape of them saying what they said.
Exactly.
And yet, you're not supposed to believe us. You're supposed to believe all these journalists who use anonymous sources quoting hearsay from other anonymous sources. I think we need to start saying to the media, unless you actually show us tape or your notebooks of what these sources are saying, we don't believe you because you have no credibility. Every prediction, everything you said during the election was proved to be wrong. But this is the game we play. Andrew Breitbart always told me we have to be held to a higher standard. But in any event, that's what Kramer did. That's what we're facing, and we're going to fight it.
All right, final segment with Joe Biggs. Laura Loomer will do 5 more minutes with us in the next hour. Then I'm opening the phones up in the 3rd hour. Then Paul Watson will host the 4th hour from London, England. Always powerful. I haven't really gotten into North Korea, the liberal wonderland, and how the left was saying they basically hoped he would die. Well, Otto Warmbier did die. That's all coming up as well in the next hour. Briefly, before we go back to Laura Loomer, who has so much courage to actually go up on a stage in front of people and speak the truth to a bunch of crazed death cult worshipers. They're having a simulated murder porn orgy. So say what you want about her. She has got guts, and I salute her, and I thank her. And they said she was a paid activist when she wasn't. So I'm going to send her, I think I said a couple $1,000. I need to get her contact information because we have our $200,000 contest going, exposing CNN as ISIS, exposing mainstream media as terrorist. And if you can get Infowars.com in, that's fine. But even though she really wasn't part of the contest, I want to take liberal lies and with alchemy make them true. She wasn't a paid activist, but now she is. She deserves awards. She deserves to be put on a pedestal for her guts. No guts, no glory. We'll get final comments from Joe Biggs and then from her here in a moment. Briefly, help fund our $200,000 contest by getting the image of Kathy Griffin and Trump's head chopped off saying CNN terrorist. There's other variants as well that says fake news. There's other T-shirts that we sell as well. It's all about meeting like-minded people. It's all about getting back in their face. It's all about spreading the word and starting conversations and exercising the First Amendment or losing it. And we have store-wide free shipping for a few more days. I don't think I'm going to keep the free shipping with some of the big specials we've got because we're about to sell out of a lot of products. But right now we got 30% off the Good Halogen X2. Learn the secrets of nascent iodine and why ours is the best. Get Z-Shield, known herbs and Shilajit and zeolites that detoxify the heavy metals and toxins out of your body. That is a brand new product, really popular. 30% off out of the gate. I want you to get introduced to it. 30 to 40% off all the My Patriot Supply food that we then private label, InfoWars Select, to be able to sell it for 30, 40% below what anybody else can. Water filters, the very best, lowest prices on ProPure, Alexa Pure, and others that blow away all the other gravity-fed filters. We have the side-by-side comparisons at InfoWarsStore.com. But whatever you do, continue to support the broadcast because we're trying to support activists and patriots all over the world, not just here. And our talking points of liberty are leading the fight against the globalists. We'll have a few comments in the next little segment from Laura Loomer. But from you, Joe Biggs, final points you'd like to impart. You're going to be in studio tomorrow co-hosting.
Roger that. So what's happening right now is the world's changing around us. What we have to start doing is understanding how that world's changing around us so we don't become victims. Like I said, there is a war going on. Many people don't realize it, but we are the targets of a violent, radical leftist movement. And we're also the targets from radical Islamic jihadi terrorists. So we have to be on that extra lookout, break that complacency, learn to think outside of that box you normally are. Don't put yourself in a comfort zone. Put yourself in an uncomfortable situation mentally. Prepare yourself and be ready for these violent attacks. Now, don't ever go out and violently do something first, but in a defensive manner, if you are attacked, you should always have something pre-planned in your head and ready to react at that point in time. But break out of that complacency. Change your mindset. It's important right now because, like I said, we are the targets from a very violent, radical leftist movement. And they're gaining momentum, and the best thing we can do is to be ready for that and have a clear, path to that way that we can do something.
Joe, how do folks follow you on Twitter and Facebook?
At Rambo Biggs, and then go to just Joe Biggs on Facebook. Trust me, you'll know the picture. I usually have a grizzly bear suit on, or I'm holding my daughter. So,
or both.
Yeah,
that's America right there.
Oh yeah.
And folks, America isn't perfect, but compared to North Korea and most other places, it's great. That's where we're from. That's why we're promoting it. And we're hoping to spread it through peace worldwide. Third hour straight ahead. Final comments from Laura Loomer. Then your phone calls and more. Stay with us.